Hello, everybody. Welcome to Downtown Sports. My name is John Schiavone. I'm the mouth of the South. I'm here with my co-host, the Beast of the East, Jonathan Perriente. Usually we come in with loud, boisterous music, opinions. We're like kind of like a WWE tag team coming into a show, yelling about all this stuff we're going to talk about, all excited, telling you where to find us and listen to us. John will take care of that in a little bit. But there's something we need to take care of first, the both of us. And the first thing I just want to say is justice for George Floyd, the man who was murdered by Minneapolis police. And I send out my well wishes to the protesters who are in the street peacefully demonstrating. I also send well wishes to any public servants, police officers, politicians who are out trying to keep people safe and not hurt protesters. And I just hope that this can wake us up to finally realize that police need to just stop wantonly killing Black people for no reason. It has to stop. It has to end. And it has to end right here, right now. And it ends with tolerance, it ends with understanding, and it ends with just stop being racist. And I think that's the entire point of these protests. Let's just stop treating each other this way. John, anything?
A lot to say with George Floyd. It's been felt all around the world, not just here in the United States, but it's even going overseas now. You're really seeing the impact that this senseless killing did. You saw it with Breonna Taylor just weeks ago with Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, Eric Garner. I could go through a whole list of injustices that have occurred.
Amadou Diallo, Rodney King.
Abner Louima.
And on. Sean Bell.
This is finally George Floyd. We can finally say in our history books is the straw that broke the camel's back.
I hope.
This did break the camel's back. However we want to say it. We're on day 8 of protests in the United States. This is the 8th day of protests here in the United States. The main officer charged in the murder will be in trial next week, June 8th. 2:30 in the afternoon, mark that on your calendar. The first of the 4 officers, and I hope the other 3 join him, will all have to serve justice for the death of George Floyd. We will have a lot more to discuss on this, particularly in the sports world and how it's being felt now in the world of sports, because now you're seeing a lot of voices come out now, particularly across the United States and overseas.
Yeah, and we're gonna talk about how New York area athletes and owners are specifically responding to this. I mean, because we wanted to start off the show and say what we felt, but we didn't want to go into a whole diatribe because 2 white guys talking about this would sound completely freaking tone deaf. But I wanted to at least bring up something within the sports world that addresses the kind of, cluelessness and tone deafness about this situation that has permeated the people that are not protesting around the country. And I think it's important to talk about it. But this is a 2-hitter. Yes. John, we've got a topic 1 of this 2-hitter that we got to do, right? Yeah. So what's going on, John? What are we starting this 2-hitter off with? Let me get that clock.
We're going to begin with baseball. And with each passing day, with each passing week, we keep hearing more and more about is baseball have any direction of when it's going to come back, or is it time to just consider the season a wash? Every day.
Ready to start the clock?
Yep. Begin the clock. So let's
15 minutes.
So let's dive in. Let's dive into baseball. And let me dive right into the proposals that have been thrown around now by the Players Association.
Players Association and the owners both have new contracts on the table. So let's just bring a little background, because the last time we talked to MLB, we were at the point where the owners wanted to do a 50-50 revenue split and install a soft cap. We've moved on from that. And John, which side are we going to go to first? You want to do chronological order, or do you want to see what the players responded to that idea with? Which one first?
Let's go with the recent proposal from the players. This was from May 14th. There was an aim to play an 82-game season,
Mhm.
14-team postseason that could be concluded in early November.
Okay.
That was roughly the beginning of a plan. Then the Players Association made a proposal of their own.
The Players Association of the Owners.
The PA,
Okay.
the Players Association.
All right. Then
So
they came back with what?
first, before I get into that, there was also the economic plan that was introduced to the Players Association as well.
Mhm.
One of them was proposed cuts, tweeted that a player on a $35 million salary would make about $7.8 million. Someone at $10 million would earn about $2.9. $1 million player would earn about $434,000, roughly about half of what you're normally to be paid.
You're gonna make if you're a lower paid player, and maybe about 20% of what you were gonna make
Right.
if you were a higher paid player.
Right.
Yeah, so that's not gonna work. What's
Then the Major League Baseball Players Association had a counter proposal. So this is from May 31st. The Players Association presented the league with a 114-game regular season that would end on Halloween, so the last day of October, an opt-out clause that would allow any player to sit out the season, and a potential deferral of 2020 salaries if the postseason is canceled. And also the 114-game season would begin on June 30th. An expanded playoff structure then would be in place for this season and for 2021. Also, players would receive a $100 million salary advance during whatever type of training camp takes place this summer. So $100 million is similar to so this $100 million payment was similar to the $170 that players received this past March as an advance for their 2020 salaries. So, since they're both in advance, a total of $270 million would be factored into players' salaries during any 2020 regular season games. That's quite a lot to take in there, John. That's quite a lot to take in.
So basically the players are saying, okay, we want to get paid what we are supposed to earn per game. We've already given you the games that we don't play. The players are now saying we want a 114 game season, which would pretty much eliminate so 162 game season, they'd only be losing a third of their money.
Yeah, you're losing 48 games. You're losing 48 games.
Yeah, so they're losing about a third of their season, about a third of their money. And 2 cash advances would obviously be worked into the salary that would go into the whole 2/3 of a season pay. So that gets cut instantly off of their paychecks that they would be making when they're playing the games. I understand where they're coming from on this, but I don't see any way you could have a 114 game season. I know the owners aren't going to accept that. They are crying poverty. So what do the owners come back with, John?
Well, so far we haven't seen another deal yet. This is the most recent counter proposal that the Players Association made to the league.
And the league has come out with something like this, from what I've heard. Now, league came back, I was reading through my news feed, with a proposal of a 60-game season with the salaries prorated like the players wanted in the first place. So instead of 114 games,
they're playing
the owners are saying 60 because that's as many games as we could afford to pay full salary for.
That's including the postseason, or that's if you add the postseason.
60-game regular season and regular postseason structure. These two sides are so far apart on everything. Every day you hear another trickle-down rumor from the MLB. It's been literal, like Hot Stove has now went from trade rumors and signing players to are we going to play or are we not? This is 1994 all over again. And
it's crazy. We're not even in a lockout. That's the scariest.
We're going to be. We're going to be.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why it's going to happen. It's going to happen because the MLB, the owners want to break the players' union. They are actually using a pandemic to break a union. So MLB comes back and Manfred comes back with this stupid proposal of maybe play 50 or 60 games at most because that's what they could afford to play. Then when Manfred says, well, we gave you what you wanted, you got a prorated salary, you know what you're going to make, go ahead and play. The players are thinking to themselves, why am I risking my health, my body, and my life for barely a third of my salary?
Yeah.
So is like, how much money is it worth it to the players to get their bodies revved up, rev that engine up again, to be able to perform at the type of levels needed to play Major League Baseball? I don't care how good your at-home workout program is. There's no way you're going to match the same type of strenuous workouts and, targeted things that you would do with a training staff and a facility. That requires a lot of time, effort, patience, work, and those players get paid for that work. So
Right.
you're going to ramp your body up for, if you're Bryce Harper, once again, I'm using Bryce Harper because he's the clear-cut $30 million a year example, okay? This is how we could actually do this in threes without confusing ourselves and having to pull out calculators like we did last episode. My God. Or actually, I don't know, I'm sorry, 2 episodes ago where we had to figure out how much money baseball was losing off of no fans in the stands, came out to billions of dollars. But so now Bryce Harper, according to the MLB's newest plan, would end up making something like $6 to $8 million.
I want to read a piece here. This is very important. This is from MLB Trade Rumors, written by George Miller, and coming from John Heyman of MLB Network. Now, there was supposed to be a deadline on June 1st to have a deal between the Players Association and Major League Baseball. Now it's June 2nd, so that deal did not happen. Now, according to Heyman, says that there's still hope to begin the season on the weekend of July 4th as intended. Obviously, both sides need to come to an agreement within the next 10 or so days. Possibly June 5th to June 9th could be a possibility of a date for a deal. But Heyman seems to believe, at least, that a deal will get reached at the end of this. But obviously, neither side has been able to find any common ground on a deal. That's the big problem. After the owners submitted their economic proposal on Tuesday, the players came away thoroughly dissatisfied with their side of the deal, namely taking issue with the pay scale, with the cuts that would further reduce their salaries, and players are also in favor of a season with 100 or more games, up from the 82. But right now, the time is starting to run out as far as, can they get July 4th as a realistic start date for the Major League Baseball season? There's only about now a week to reach a deal. If that doesn't happen, any chance of a season thoroughly declines.
I think the owners and the players need to stop going back and forth with each other and playing the blame game. To me, the owners have officially stopped negotiating in good faith. I don't think they're negotiating in good faith at this point at all. I think the owners are trying to break the back of the MLB Players Union. I side with the players on this. But the point I'm going to make is this. It doesn't matter which side you come down on at this point. Do you agree with the owners? Okay, great for you. Do you agree with the players like I do? Okay, great for me. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter who's right. We have a big problem. We have a pandemic running around, and we now have supposedly figured out how to play professional sports safely, and we can't get millionaires and billionaires to agree to play games on what structure or what system. The NBA seems to have no problem doing this. The NHL, the league with multiple strikes and lockouts where the union doesn't trust the owners and the owners don't trust the union, they're managing to figure this out. But yet somehow Major League Baseball isn't. And I'll tell you why. It's because the owners have been trying to break that union forever. And now they see the one opportunity where they could cry poor and do it. And now with this new supposed proposal by Rob Manfred talking about 60 games, but they get a prorated salary, that's Manfred's way of, quote unquote, giving the players everything they wanted while still cutting and trimming and saving all the money they wanted to save. Because certain owners have now come out saying it'll cost them more money to run games without fans, even though we know that's not true. We got about 2 minutes left in the segment. John, what do you got, man? Because every day this goes on is without people actually coming to some sort of decision. is another day that I don't think we're going to have baseball this year.
I'm telling you, John, I said this on our previous show. Dark times are ahead for Major League Baseball. You think this is one problem? Wait till we get to the end of 2021.
How does this all affect that? Because quite honestly, the players union and the owners, they just don't trust each other whatsoever at this point.
So you don't think a lockout is where we are heading? I think we're heading for a lockout more than ever now with Major League Baseball, the way this is going.
Lockout.
Strike.
We might see the end of the damn league if this doesn't get resolved soon.
Well, a lockout, a strike, whatever you want to call it, is imminent for baseball right now.
This really isn't the time for millionaires and billionaires to be arguing with each other. More than ever, the national pastime has to be back. And I know it hasn't been the national pastime, quote unquote, in a long time. I think the NFL's taken over that spot. NBA is right on MLB's heels. If you're Major League Baseball, whether you're the Players Association or the owners or Manfred or the janitor or anybody involved at this point, right? If Major League Baseball keeps bickering with each other to the point where they don't have a 2020 season or a start to a 2020 season is delayed until, God forbid, after the NBA and NHL ramp up again, what do you think is going to happen to viewership? What do you think is going to happen to revenue? What do you think is going to happen to profits?
MLB's going to tank. That's exactly what's going to happen. They're going to tank.
And for the players, what do you think is going to happen to your salaries in the future if you don't work this out and you don't play this year? And if you don't play this year, the entire country is going to look at Major League Baseball saying, wow, greedy owners who are billionaires and greedy players who are millionaires can't agree of how much money to split, while meanwhile, I have to go live my terrible ass life dealing with coronavirus, going to my job, dealing with all this. I'm unemployed. I'm this and that.
And, well, basically, case in point, ladies and gentlemen, baseball has to get its act together now. With that, we'll take a little break. When we come back, sports now in the era with the terrible death of George Floyd.
Okay, I'm going to give you guys a teaser. I told you we were going to talk about one particular point because I didn't want to be tone deaf about it. We're going to present to you guys an owner of a New York sports team who, over the past week, has proven himself to be the most tone-deaf person in sports.
Well, we'll get to all that, and also really how it's being felt, the death of George Floyd, and how it's being felt around all four major North American sports. And I'll tell you, it's different everywhere in each of those sports, and we're going to give you guys our take on that, along with, John, your point that you want to share about a specific owner and where he's going with this. We'll be back right after this.
How you guys doing? This is the Mouth of the South, John Schiavone, and the Beast of the East, Jonathan Periente from Downtown Sports, where sports come home. Are you registered to vote at your current address? It's a really important question. You know, more than 60% of eligible voters have never been asked to register. Headcount.org is working to change that.
At headcount.org, you can also check your registration status. Millions of people get purged from the voter rolls every year. Everyone should check their registration status every year. The deadline to register to vote in some states is as early as October 4th, so you want to check before then.
You could also request an absentee ballot, get info on early voting, and find your polling place, or see who's even on your ballot.
Headcount is a nonpartisan, nonprofit that tours with musicians to help concert attendees register to vote. But you don't need to leave your house to register or get voting info. Just visit headcount.org.
Register to vote today at www.headcount.org. Once again, www.headcount.org. Let your voice be heard. Don't let yourself be voiceless. Register to vote. And we're back here on Downtown Sports. I'm John Schiavone, the Mouth of the South, along with my co-host, the Beast of the East, Jonathan Periente. We're coming into the second half of our two-hitter, but in the beginning of the show, we didn't necessarily go through all the places where you could hear us like we usually do. John, let's take care of that business, please.
We are on 8 different platforms. Our Downtown Sports Podcast, you can listen to us on Anchor.fm, on Spotify, on Breaker, on Google Podcasts, on Overcasts, on Pocket Casts, on Apple Podcasts, and Radio Public. We are all over. You can listen to us at any time, any place. We're on every Tuesday, Wednesday, each week with a ranting episode. Always, Downtown Sports is your home for all sports.
Okay, so we're going to get into the second half of our two-hitter. Now we're going to specifically cover what the sports world has been saying about the death of George Floyd. We're going to get into some tweets from some athletes, some opinions from people, what people think about all this other stuff. And then I'm going to go into a New York sports owner whose tone deafness really just needs to be addressed. Let me just do that. Starting the clock right now.
Okay, so let's dive into this. The sports world has reacted to the tragic death of George Floyd, and it's great to see, though, the outpouring of support for the protests and for everything involved. We even have players going above and beyond to contribute to the cause with the helping to make sure the killers for George Floyd, the cops involved, are brought to justice and prosecuted to the fullest.
You said it the first time right, killers.
Bring these cops to justice, all 4 of them.
Yep. Agreed.
Floyd Money Mayweather will cover the cost of the funeral. Colin Kaepernick will contribute as well. Every athlete has reacted so strongly, and it's not just black athletes. It's
and what did Kaepernick? What did Kaepernick do? What is Kaepernick doing? Kaepernick
is going to donate the money to the costs for the lawyers. So the costs for the lawyers covering the. So basically, the fee that you pay to the lawyers after a case.
The one thing I'll say about Colin Kaepernick, whether you agreed with the way that he went about his business or the way that he didn't go about his business, he puts his money where his mouth is. That's what we're seeing from the sports community in general. But even in terms of not money, I mean, we'll go into what white athletes have done too. But I just want to give particular shout outs to former NBA player Steven Jackson, who showed up to the Minneapolis protests and gave a very rousing speech talking about how he loved all of his brothers and sisters from other races, but he's tired of having to be the bigger person. Now it's time for us all to step up and do better for each other. And I think that was very inspiring. And honestly, this is the type of response that we're seeing from athletes. John, we got more good stuff. Come on, let's keep the positivity.
Yeah, let me read some of the tweets that have come out from a couple of these athletes, and it's very interesting. It's not just black athletes that have been outpouring of support for George Floyd.
Thank God. Thank God.
It's been white athletes. I'd like to bring up one.
Good.
So let's bring up. I would like to bring up one in particular from J.J. Watt. You guys know the type of player that he is. He's one of the big presences for defense, one of the great voices, I think, for the NFL. And he basically said this in a very important three short words. The silence is unacceptable on the murder of George Floyd.
Correct.
I want you to really take those words. Silence is unacceptable. You've heard it. Everybody wants justice. Everybody wants the right thing to be done. You have Colin Kaepernick also kind of giving us a little prelude to what happened when he took a knee 4 years ago, that this is what's going to happen. And now you even have players like Jackson saying the NFL should owe Colin Kaepernick an apology.
Peter Alonso actually came out with a really good Peter Alonso, because some people were trying to troll him when he was talking about the murder of George Floyd on Twitter, saying, oh, all lives matter. And Pete Alonso, 25 years old, young guy, on top of the world, somebody who this never would seem to affect. He has this to say: get out of here with that ignorance. When you're talking about all lives matter, here's the quote: get out of here with that ignorance. Of course everybody's life matters, but we're focusing on the widespread racism in our country right now. The question is, why does Black Lives Matter movement bother you enough that you have to say all lives matter? And there's the point.
Powerful.
And I'm proud of the sports world for coming out and doing the right things. But there's one person who's not doing the right thing. And look, I don't care. This isn't political. This isn't politics radio. No. This is real life going on in real time. And John,
yeah,
Chris, our statistician, Chris DeLars, shouts to you, bro.
I give him a lot of credit for this. He sent us a very important piece here from, well, Knicks owner James Dolan. Oh boy. Anytime you hear James Dolan,
anytime you hear James Dolan, your stomach just starts to turn, and you start to think back to Patrick getting traded.
I want to read the long message and email that he wrote to all Madison Square Garden employees. That includes the Knicks, any staff. He wrote this.
Where'd you get this from, Johnny?
This is
we got it from Chris sent us, but who's the
this is via Yahoo Sports, written by Ryan Young. And this is also via per ESPN's Pablo Torre. So here is what James Dolan had to say to all Madison Square Garden employees. Quote,
"Oh God.
We know that some of you have asked about whether our company is going to make a public statement about the killing of George Floyd by a Minneapolis police officer. I want you to know I realize the importance of this issue. Therefore, I want you to understand our internal position. This is a turbulent time in our country. The coronavirus and civil unrest have taken their toll on our way of life. We at Madison Square Garden stand by our values of a respectful and peaceful workplace. We always will. As companies in the business of sports and entertainment, however, we are not any more qualified than anyone else to offer our opinion on social matters. What's important is how we operate. Our companies are committed to upholding our values, which include creating a respectful workplace for all, and that will never change. What we say to each other matters. How we treat each other matters. And that's what will get us through this difficult time." End quote.
Civil unrest. He said civil unrest, but I am not more qualified than anyone else to talk about social issues, and we value equality in the workplace.
Can I mention the Knicks are one of two teams in the NBA that have not released a statement?
Who's the other?
Spurs. Even though Greg Popovich blasted President Trump, which that's Greg Popovich. He always does that. But
yeah, but I'm just wondering, how in the hell does James Dolan think this is okay? How does James Dolan think it's okay to say something like that? I am not more qualified than anyone else to take a position on the social issues of this country right now. That's your internal position as a company? A guy got kneeled on to death. And that is your opinion as a company. Repeat that again, John.
The civil unrest and the coronavirus have taken their toll on our way of life. As companies in the business of sports and entertainment, however, we are not any more qualified than anyone else to offer our opinion on social matters.
So wait, you're in the business of sports and entertainment.
Entertainment, yes.
And you're not qualified to speak on social matters? You make your money off of social matters.
Thank you.
Everything about how you make bank is social, especially James Dolan, Mr. I own Cablevision. Everything about what you do is social, is about social issues. Your athletes are on the forefront of social issues. Your workers are on the forefront of social issues. You run an entertainment business. Your part of what you do is provide meaningful entertainment to people, to a society. Sports and society are interfreaking-twined. Sports have been a part of the fabric of American culture since freaking forever. Nobody took black athletes seriously until the MLB put Jackie Robinson in, begrudgingly, I might add. So don't tell me that sports aren't intertwined with the fabric of our society enough that you don't know that you should be saying justice for George Floyd. That's the only opinion. The only one. I'm sorry, but it's the only opinion to have. You own the New York Knicks. And despite what anyone will tell you in New York nowadays, that team is the city's most favorite team. To see what it went from in the 90s, it wasn't just our basketball team. The Knicks were our identity as a city. That's the one team that this city really comes together for beyond any other. Giants fans argue with Jets fans. Mets fans argue with Yankees fans. The Knicks are the one thing that we all agreed on here. And Dolan is the owner of a New York sports team, and he doesn't know what to say?
This is
He
sounding
doesn't
like
know what an official position he can take?
This is
How
sounding
about this? Stop killing black people.
This is sounding like Donald Sterling all over again.
I don't know what's worse. I don't know what's worse.
I thought when we heard that little recording of Donald Sterling talking about blacks was bad enough, was crazy enough.
For him to literally not make a statement and then go and defend that. If that's how you felt, you didn't want to say anything offensive. You could have just said, I stand by people's right to peacefully protest social injustice. Or you could have said any number of things.
Mm-hmm.
But for you to say that you're not qualified, you know what that means? That means you're straddling the fence. That means you're sitting on the bench. And to me, at this point, you shouldn't be sitting on the bench anymore. You shouldn't be saying a social issue. It's not a social issue. It's a problem when people are dying for no reason at the hands of police. That is a problem. When an unarmed, handcuffed man gets a knee to the throat for no reason, that's a problem. And for you to say, I'm not qualified, if you're not qualified to speak about this, then I don't know what to say about you. I don't know what to say about you as a person.
How can you
I don't
qualify
know
as an owner?
what to say about if you even have a soul or not anymore.
How can you even be an owner of anything?
I don't know.
With that attitude? That's the scariest thing.
How could you be an owner of anything in New York City?
Particularly when you go back to what he said before, when he basically said, we at Madison Square Garden stand by our values of a respectful and peaceful workplace.
Respectful and peaceful. Dog whistle language.
Yeah. He said that twice,
racist
respectful workplace. He said that twice in his email, twice. He said respectful workplace.
Yeah, who's he trying to remind? Me or himself after Isaiah Thomas was boinking that secretary and doing like sexual misconduct? That's a real respectful workplace. And he wanted to keep that guy on.
I'm going to read this little piece here from Pablo Torre, who is responsible for this message here. He's tweeted out that Knicks players and employees are furious that the team has not made a public statement. Furious.
And this
is tell you everything.
And this is what Dolan responds to that with. And here's what New York responds to you. If this is what you're going to say, and this is your position, sell the team. Oh, wait, I'm banned from Madison Square Garden now. Oh, my God. I guess I can't go to a Knicks game again. I'll never be able to pay $500 to sit at the back of Madison Square Garden because it's Dolan's building. But sell the team. Sell it right now. If you are that tone deaf, sell it.
Look what happened when he kicked Charles Oakley out of the Garden. Remember that? Remember when he kicked Oakley out?
Oh my God.
Kicks anybody out that goes against him. He'll kick anybody out that hates him.
But this is the type of, what do you expect from a guy who calls everybody alcoholics that disagrees with him? What do you expect from a person that doesn't seem to have a human soul in their body? Like, literally, who is so ridiculously tone deaf that you don't say, I stand in support of peaceful protest and for the justice of the killer of George Floyd?
When you work for
he didn't even extend apology.
When you work for any job, when you work for any employer, you want your boss, you want your head of your company to be in support of the message your fellow employees try to say. You got to be open to what your customers want. You got to be open to what your employees want. The minute you lose them, you've lost your whole company.
And I just want to point out one more thing before we get off the air here. Mm-hmm. Not one spot, not in one place, in what was reported that was said in that email, did Madison Square Garden, James Dolan, officially say that they send their condolences to the family of George Floyd. Yep. That wasn't in the letter. Even Roger Goodell in his hypocritical laden thing said, we as a league will continue to work to stop the systemic racism issues that plague our country today. Even Roger Goodell knew how to say that. My God, I want to be able to call Dolan a hypocrite. I can't even do that. But this just so fits James Dolan and his I don't care about anybody else but myself attitude. And to not even offer an apology to George Floyd is just disgusting. Not even offer condolences to his family. I mean, you could at least do that. You could at least say, I send my condolences to the family of George Floyd. It was a tragedy how he was murdered or something. No, he says, I don't know if I'm as qualified as anybody else to talk about social justice issues.
Karma's going to catch up to him. Karma's going to catch up to him.
And with that, we're out of time. Johnny, I'll let you extend it for a sec. I know you got words, bro. Say some words and end the show.
How anybody can still be blind to what they saw this past week with George Floyd and be oblivious to it. How do people live with themselves? Seeing a cop put his knee on a guy's neck, saying, I can't breathe.
Screaming out for his dead mother.
His mother, yes. And, you know, I listened to the video of yesterday. You hear even what the cops themselves were saying, and cop didn't even show any empathy. Chauvin didn't show any empathy at all. You hear onlookers that are telling him, get your foot off of him. They're all telling the officer Chauvin to stop. Not a word.
And Dolan can say that he's not in a position, or he doesn't have the right to, or he feels that he shouldn't have anything to say. To me, that's straddling the fence here. I don't understand how you straddle a fence when somebody put a knee to somebody else's throat in the middle of a street. I don't know how you straddle the fence there. I don't understand how police could shoot into a home and kill a woman and it was the wrong house.
Breonna Taylor, yes.
I don't understand how a guy can go for a freaking jog and get gunned down like an animal by two animals and an animal with a camera.
Ahmaud Arbery.
So all I'm going to say is I don't understand how when you see abject murder, mistreatment of people, per capita statistics show it, it's been there for years, and you still don't have a place to comment. That just says everything I need to know about James Dolan and to not even offer an apology or send condolences to George Floyd and the family, or to say, I hope we as a country could come together and heal during this time. Nothing even like that was said. Just defense of him, himself, and his equality in the workplace initiative. Disgusting.
I'll tell you this as we wrap it up. This is going to make its way, I'm sure, to Commissioner Silver. This is going to make its way to Silver at some point. Dolan's going to get what's coming to him soon. Karma. And with that, that wraps up Downtown Sports. Jonathan Pariente, the Beast of the East, my co-host, the Mouth of the South, John Schiavone. We are available on 8 different platforms on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Radio Public, Breaker, Pocket Casts, Overcasts, Anchor, and Spotify. You can listen to us every week, sports, episodes, rants, every week. And we will see all of you next week. We'll see where things are as the killers are brought to justice.
Rest in peace, George Floyd. Justice for George Floyd. We out.